Hi, welcome to the award-winning Ed Brown Show. And back on the show by popular band Matthew Fogg. This is a young man that's running for House of Delegates in 25th. He's a former U.S. Marshal, and he's going to give us some information where maybe your buddy or someone in your family want to be a U.S. Marshal. Oh, call Mr. Fogg. Mr. Fogg,
Yes,
welcome
sir.
back on the show. Your show last time, people were really interested in everything. They were interested in 9/11. They were interested in your position and the things that you did up in New York on 9/11. So, hey, give us a refresher of those things. Then we'll get into what it takes to be a U.S. Marshal.
Well, let me just say this. On 9/11, I happened to be in New York. I was off duty at the time when the planes actually hit the buildings. And when I first saw it on television, because I was in my hotel room, I thought it was actually sort of like a trial, mock trial. Then when I went outside and I saw everybody screaming and hollering and pointing, and 40 blocks up the street with buildings that size, it's almost like you're right up on them.
Right.
And when I saw the fire burning and so forth, I went back inside, and then shortly thereafter, both of the towers collapsed. I went back outside. Everybody was screaming and running, hollering, pointing. I knew then there was a side of me that becoming a U.S. Marshal, you swear to serve and protect this country for foreign and domestic enemies. And also being a member of the SWAT team and special operations, I had a lot of training around search and rescue,
Right.
recovery, all of that type of experience. So I knew there was a side of me down inside said they're going to need my help. And the fire station was right like 1 block over from me. Matter of fact, they lost most firefighters. They lost about, I think it was about 17 firefighters.
Yeah, right, 17 or 18.
Right,
something
exactly.
Like that. Yeah.
And so I said, let me go down. So, and it was amazing enough, it was an Army surplus store right across the street from the hotel.
Can't
I
believe
went, I mean, it was just, everything was just, it was just in place. So I went over and I bought fatigues, shirt, boots, mask, things that I thought was going to be really important, flashlights and everything.
I would think maybe the guy would have just donated it. No.
No, man, I had to pay for it. It was amazing. And several $100s, matter of fact. But that's
that
how committed I was. And I went down and I started assisting and I got in and just started helping out. And it was so surreal. I mean, when you're talking about 2 buildings of that size dropping into one area, the destruction was so massive, it was almost just hard to figure out where to start. And so just pretty much just started trying to help people and do what I could do. And
Just the trauma.
yeah, the trauma, man. I mean,
Yes.
it was just, again, to this day, it's hard to picture. You can see it on television, but to be there, it's like any type of bomb or explosion goes off. We can show the images, but to actually be there,
It makes a difference.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So I got involved in that. Also in my career, there's been a lot of other things that I was involved in, major fugitive hunts, tracking people all across the country, United States. And one of the things that marshals do is fugitive manhunts. And that's what I mainly did, was drug and gun fugitive manhunts. Handled major court trials, did dignitary protections out of New York. We would back up the United Nations Security Force and protect dignitaries coming in the country, sort of like the Secret Service does with our presidential candidates or president and so forth. U.S. Marshals do the same thing on a wider scale.
Right.
So we do a varied thing. We witness protection program. This is where, of course, witnesses that are going to testify for the government, helping to solve crimes. Sometimes these witnesses are in organizations that will definitely come after them. So we provide protection for those witnesses. Asset seizure program. We seize all of the assets that come under the federal jurisdiction. That's U.S. Marshals handle that. So we do a variety of things.
Yeah.
And the main one is the protection of the federal court system.
Right. Well, tell us this, just happened, where we sent some troops in over there at Libya, and they got this fugitive that was involved. Tell us a little bit about that. What's your opinion about that
That operation?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I tell you now, I don't think U.S. Marshals was involved in that. It was probably more CIA or military sort of
Military.
operation.
Yeah.
But we have gone into other countries. We went down and got Noriega, as a matter of fact, the drug cartel kingpin.
Right.
There are other kingpins that we've gone after. But on that particular situation, I would simply just say that with the intelligence that the government had and so forth, they believe they have the man that did what they said he did. So I would assume they went after him. And that means a lot to the world because it says you can run, but you sure can't hide. And that was always our motto. You can run, but you sure can't hide. So I think in that sense, it sends a message out to the
world.
To the world.
Yeah, saying if you commit a crime, terrorism,
US.
whatever, that we'll track down. What is it, 2-3 years from the time the crime was committed?
That's right, in Benghazi, right.
Yeah, in Benghazi.
That's right, but you're always, once that warrant goes out on you, that warrant is everlasting. I mean, we go after you, especially for things, for major felonies, murder and stuff like that. So, you know, we hear about people that's been tracked down after 20 years.
Yeah.
25 years, you know, they somehow something happens. And it is amazing with people who are on the run because at some point in time, they will usually do something, no matter how small it may be, that might expose their identity.
Yeah, because sometimes they just try to disguise yourself, but apparently this guy didn't. He felt that he was untouchable there.
That's right.
in Libya, you know. But the operations that I knew something must have been happening when they sent that carrier in there, some destroyers in that area. Something was going down. I didn't know what, you know. I said they didn't just go there for games.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? And actually rescuing like that is, I imagine it was the heat of the night or whatever, the timing and everything.
Well,
you know.
Well, we mainly talk about, and also Iraq. I mean, the unstable conditions over in Iraq right now, you know, it will affect the world because we got oil. It's a lot of oil in Iraq. It's just a lot of international things that right now this country is concerned about. But right now they're concerned about their facility, the embassy, that huge place over there.
Right. That's some embassy. That's like a little city.
That's right,
you
man.
know. I mean, they're self-sustaining.
That's right.
Everything, electricity, water, everything.
That's right.
Everything was self-sustaining. In other words, they didn't depend on the foreign country for nothing.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the way that you think. That's the way all the embassies are that.
Oh yeah, yeah. The embassies have to be fortified, especially in countries that they would consider high-risk countries, that where terrorists or where our people are at risk. Then you got to fortify, and that's what happened with Benghazi. I mean, the whole scenario was there enough security, or was it intelligence enough that the people should have gotten out before what occurred?
You're right.
And but now certainly the marshals, we wouldn't be involved in that per se. Our job is more of a domestic sort of home front.
But hey, on the home front, you have terrorists too.
Oh, no question.
You know what I mean?
And that's where we come in at.
You have plenty of them hiding out here in the United States, I think, you know, in fact, they had some from World War II.
That's right.
From the Hitler regime.
That's right.
That they have been living here for 20, 30 years.
That's right.
You know,
they tracked them down.
And finally they, you know, the system, you know, tracked them down. See?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, tell us about this U.S. Marshal. Some youngsters are interested in a position like that. How do you prepare yourself?
Well, you know, the marshals, it doesn't require a degree, but it's a combination between education and experience. It's usually at the GS7 level that we talk about, where you bring the new recruits in. So if you got a combination of law enforcement experience, you got a combination of degree and college degree. If you have a college degree, that's certainly will get you in the door. But if those who don't have the degrees, then we say a combination of experience. Furthermore, when you look at what we do, the U.S. Marshal Service has 94 districts, so there's 94 United States Marshals around the country. Each district is sort of a separate entity of itself. And how we operate is we have a headquarters office that controls all 94 districts.
Is that Washington, D.C.?
That's right outside of Washington, D.C., but
Right.
yes, in Virginia, right? Crystal
Right.
City, Virginia. Pretty much, we got about, probably today, around close to 5,000 U.S. Marshals, deputy, when I'm talking about deputy law enforcement positions. The organization is primarily responsible for protecting the judicial system. So that means and that which gives it a pretty much probably the widest range, broadest powers than any law enforcement agency, because when you talk about all of the processes that come out of federal court, that just varies from like I said when I was telling you earlier about our asset seizures, our fugitives, any warrants that come out of that system, the U.S. Marshals is primarily responsible for. We're talking about our witness protection program and our detention officers. That's another position we're talking about. We got air detention officers, people that fly on that plane that takes those prisoners. You call it air con, that most people know it, that flies on those planes that takes those prisoners to different places around the country. We also have enforcement detention officers, people that handles the jails and not I don't want to say prison settings, but the jail settings where we maintain prisoners doing prisoner movement. We also have, of course, the prisoner movement operation, which is vast because we are moving prisoners all over the United States.
Then you are going in and out different jurisdictions.
That's
you
right.
know. Sometimes that can be sensitive, you know, just like in the cowboy movie, the sheriff, his jurisdiction was just that little town.
That's
whereas
right.
A U.S. Marshal, he can go to this town, that town, and he had authority over the sheriff.
That's right. That's right. For U.S. Marshal Service started in 1789, and in that time in Georgia, our duties, we were the only federal law enforcement agency during that time. Of course, it has varied now into others, but the bottom line is that the marshal being the oldest one and being the jurisdiction that we have, we were always called in, as you say, in the Wild Wild West days. You know, when people think about Wyatt Earp and people like that, and they take people and they would deputize these gunslingers.
Right.
And they would the federal judge would deputize him, and that was his job. And he had federal authority, which was, of course, superseded all the state and local authority.
Local, right. See, that was one of the things, and I think that was the key to the clean up the Wild West, and
no question.
and not carrying people not carrying a weapon, you know,
That's
openly.
right.
You know?
Well, again, the marshal. You know, when you look at the U.S. Marshal, and most of the time it's amazing because myself on the job, when I come on the scene, I say, how you doing, United States Marshal? You know, your voice gets deeper and you go, I'm here to do a certain thing. People respected us. I mean, they carry a lot of respect for the U.S. Marshal because of our history and all of the things, even when you're talking about the history of the Civil Rights Movement.
Really, it supersedes local authority.
That's right. That's why with the Civil Rights Movement, we hear when we think of Governor Wallace and we think about the steps of Alabama, and they show a U.S. Marshal escorting the little girl into the Alabama University, or the kids and the people in the different schools and so forth. The U.S. Marshals were there for the Civil Rights Movement, for any missile, when he would move these missiles across the country during the missile crisis. A lot of times you always see a U.S. Marshal vehicle out there. We've done so many different varieties of what you call duties, enforcement and law enforcement operations and protection details that I myself, I mean, when we talk about the Fawaz Yunus trial of the bombing of the Pan Air flight, we were the U.S. Marshals. We handled the security for the judges and for the people that were being prosecuted. So any high profile prosecution in a federal court, U.S. Marshals will be there.
Yeah, great. Okay, what we want to do now is find out some of the things that you want to change as in the House of Delegates down there in Annapolis. Give us your information.
One of the primary things that I'm running for is because I want to change the what we call this whole prison pipeline of locking these young people up and just literally throwing away the key, charging them with felonies. And I feel that the drug war has played a major role in that, because the drug war was able to we came up with these draconian laws most of the legislators around the country, 3 strikes you're out,
Yeah, right.
or charging you with if you got powder versus crack cocaine, and all of the openings that it gave law enforcement to just run into the communities and go after these people and lock them up literally for just about anything, marijuana and so forth.
Right.
So
well, that's why the ratio of 80% of the young men there in jail there are African American.
that's right, and that's
And they're only 13% of the population, but they're 80%. And basically, what they want to do now, the different jurisdictions are going through this thing of making it, let's say, illegal. Make it legal if you have 100 pounds or whatever. What's the ruling on that?
Well,
as far as the marijuana is concerned.
You mean legalizing or regulating?
Yeah. Legalizing, regulating.
That's correct. That's correct. I mean, we've got Colorado and we've got Seattle in Washington. Seattle. Both have legalized it, and I think more states are following that pattern because there's a system that I believe in law enforcement that you're not going to be able to enforce your way out of this procedure. It's just like alcohol prohibition.
Yeah.
They realized at one point in time it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
So
they tried the same thing with that.
That's exactly right. People are going to get a substance and use it. So what you do is you go for treatment over incarceration. That's what I believe in. If somebody's got a habit, supply and demand, then you go for treatment. You go for education over incarceration.
Right.
Training and teaching people why cigarettes, why marijuana, why drugs, or why alcohol is bad for you. But you cannot, when you go around and you make it illegal, you create this sort of market for violence.
Right.
And that's what we see. Right. So many people have been killed or affected by the war on drugs that weren't even involved in it. So as a law enforcement officer, as a U.S. Marshal, I begin to notice we even targeted the urban areas because when we tried to go into the more affluent, the white areas, they would tell us you can't go out there because those folks know judges, lawyers, and politicians. And you got there start locking their children up or locking them up. They got money to get lawyers, and they're gonna also go to their legislators and say, let's shut that operation down. So it just became sort of a culture within our law enforcement community go after the weakest link. And that's when you got the racial profiling and everything else.
Yeah, and you're dealing with the minorities.
That's exactly right.
And what that does, I feel is something that doesn't go away. For instance, that youngster, once he gets arrested and served time, then as far as his employment,
that's right.
It just limits. So the first thing employer does is, if you've been incarcerated, they cross you off.
That's right.
I mean, you don't have here, what is it, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old here, you're limited as far as employment is concerned.
That's right.
Because you have a record.
That's right.
Once you get, and that's what the youngsters don't understand, once you get that record, they hold it, they say they don't, but they hold it against you for life.
It is what it says. It's a record. And today, with the way our computer systems are, that record is always easily available. So pretty much once you say you've been charged with a felony, your life, you don't have a super support mechanism, then your life is pretty much as far as any type of meaningful work.
Meaningful work.
It's done. And that's one of the things that I'm going for, expungement of nonviolent felony records, so that these young men that are coming out of these prison institutions will be able to get viable jobs. It's one thing to get a job, but a viable job, something that can
viable is the key.
That's the key.
Because working at McDonald's, you can't support a family.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
you know what I mean? And that's what people fail to realize. This is what the male image. This is what he has to fight for life.
That's right.
It's like a life sentence.
That's
because what it limits him in the type of job that he can get, the type of home that he can get, the environment where he can live. There's only a certain place. The economics.
That's right.
The economics is the thing that goes along with it for life.
That's right. The whole livelihood. And one of the things, not only that, but now we're seeing prisons for profit pop up, where these prisons are actually being now privatized. and where
Yeah.
you're talking about now it's money in it. So it's
Right.
like building a
Making it
hotel.
worse. Yeah.
You build a hotel, you need occupants.
So
You build a private.
privatizing the jails, that's political,
That's
because
right.
it's dealing with money, because that means construction of new prisons.
That's exactly right.
Instead of what they're doing, they want to contract new prisons.
That's right.
Instead of solving the problem.
So that's one of my goals, is to stop this privatization of prisons, to expunge nonviolent felony records, to also make certain that our small businesses are not excessively taxed and regulated. The small business, especially in the urban communities, folks are struggling hard to try to even make that business work. And then you're going to put excessive regulation on it. You excessively tax it. That's one of the biggest problems that we have. Certainly our education system in Prince George's County, we got one of the most per capita, what we call incomes for African Americans in the whole United States.
Yeah.
And we got some of the poorest schools in Prince
Right.
George's County.
Right.
How do you add the two up? And how does that happen? So I want to get to the bottom of that. But certainly, like I said, the top one was making certain when all of these guys begin to come home from these prisons, that which they've locked up so many.
Yeah.
How do we get
Right,
them to work?
right.
And that they're not coming back.
Right. And see, actually, I really got involved with it. I was a lab director in Prince George's County, and I used to go to court for 10 years, testifying against these youngsters. I used to see them come in there, you know what I mean? And then it's no future there,
Right.
And then they come out, and they have a program, but the program really can't expunge that record.
Absolutely.
See, that's it. No matter what, if he if he goes straight for 50 years,
That's right.
they still hold that record against the fact that he was
so true.
involved with that. See,
And we can make a difference. And I say that over and over again. I mean, I hear the Lieutenant Governor, Brown says, we can do better. I always say we can do much better, and we will do better if I'm elected.
Yeah, right.
But that's what we have to do. We have to focus on, and the biggest thing that it has destroyed our community has been that, I'll say that as a law enforcement officer, has been the way we have conducted our law enforcement operations. Certainly, I saw it firsthand. If I had not seen it with my own eyes,
be something different.
I probably wouldn't have believed it.
Well, that's why it's so important to have you on the program again. There was a demand for it, because we have to get this message out to the legislators
That's right.
and the public.
That's
is
right.
that those things have to change, and
They have to.
and those are things that are affecting the future.
That's
and so
right.
you got to think of the future of your children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren.
That's right.
Because if you don't do that, you can't. If our grandparents hadn't marched,
Right.
a lot of people wouldn't be able to vote
That's
now.
right.
So those are good examples of preparing for the future. And just like you say, it's devastating. This drug charges is devastating the African American male. I mean, he's frustrated. So what does he do?
Ed, one of the things that what got me to speak out, even as a U.S. Marshal on my job, and to go against and even expose the discrimination, what I say is just like our witness protection program. I said, the government needs people who will come out and speak out. But if you're going to get retribution, and that's one of the things that happened with me. I mean, even these were the things that I was speaking out about. I was like, look, why are we going into just the African American areas, the urban areas? Why aren't we going into the more affluent areas? They use drugs, matter of fact,
Yeah,
more.
right.
They use they
Well,
got the better stuff out there. They told me, they said, fall.
Right.
Again, if we go out there and start locking those folks up, things are going to change. Well, maybe that's good. Maybe we needed that change, because just like we're hearing about gun violence, we've been hearing over and over what the gun violence has
Right.
done to our communities. But now it certainly is
Yeah.
affecting other communities, and certainly now people are saying we have to relook at this thing.
Right. Well, it's really great to have you back on the show, and the message that you're taking to the people. And you have the background and the experience for the type of individuals we need in Annapolis, because these are problems, and the only way that we're going to improve them is work together. And the business angle is another one that you talked about, and I want to emphasize that in small business, we have to get involved into the small business. And don't forget to vote. I mean, vote 25th, all the districts. You know, what you have, if you don't make excuses, because excuses, you can't do anything with it. Okay? So vote and help someone else to vote. This has been Ed Brown. See you next time.